Thank you very much for joining us. This is Dicejunkies. I'm joined with Zeno today, and on Skype we have. Oh, there's my son Tobin. Thank you very much for photobombing. I appreciate that, son. We have Matthew. Is it Kabwe?
Kabwe, yeah.
Cabway. I missed one finally. Matthew Cabway with us. Just to get right up to speed, we're Dicejunkies. We're a geek culture talk show. We do a lot of gaming content, and lately we've been doing a lot of Outriders discussion on our show. And if you go to our YouTube channel, there's a lot of gameplay from Outriders. And with us we have with us the voice of Abraham Zahedi, Matthew Cabway. All right. So yeah, I know the big question a lot of our fans are wanting to have answered, and we'll go ahead and get into the Outriders content now. You played Dr. Abraham Zahedi, which I must admit, out of all the NPCs, I have spent more time with your character than anybody else in the game.
Yeah. How cool is that?
Yeah. I'm always going to you to change mods or do all kinds of or upgrade gear. So you are the man in the game.
Yeah.
So what was your experience as an actor when you actually took on this role as Abraham Zahedi?
Oh, it was a kid in a candy shop. I mean, like a lot of people have been playing video games forever. You know, and the way that I got the job was I was shooting on Assassin's Creed Origins,
Hmm.
and I met Abu Bakr Salim, who is the lead in Origins, and he's the lead in Raised by Wolves. Super awesome guy, and he was telling me the exact same story of he's been a long time gamer, and then they cast him as the lead in this Assassin's Creed game, and he was over the moon. I was like, wouldn't that be amazing? And then I met with the director of that, who was the director of the cutscenes in Outriders, and he was like, "Hey, yeah, let's work on this. You get to be this giant character in this game." And I was like, "Yes, bring it! Like, this is fantastic." I mean, to play video games for so long and then to just be this presence in this game all the way through is just so much fun. It's such a fun game too. So it's awesome.
Oh, it is. We've been playing it since the demo came out. Actually, I think our third co-host, who unfortunately couldn't make it today, he's taking his mother out for Mother's Day right now, a day early. Has probably
Happy Mother's Day, all mothers in the world.
Oh, absolutely. Happy Mother's Day to my wife and my mom as well. And speaking of Mother's Day show, that'll be tomorrow. Which this will probably air on Mother's Day.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping I can make the show tomorrow. We may have to talk about that off air, Zeno. But when it comes to Outriders, I've been playing the Trickster, but Q, who is our third co-host, he's been played all the classes and kind of fell in love with the Technomancer. Although he's been playing the Pyro more lately. He's probably logged over 300 hours in the game. In all honesty, he has played the bejesus out of Outriders. I've been playing the Trickster, but and Xeno's he's picked up the Trickster recently. You started off with Devastator, right?
Yeah. Devastator was what was my main go-to. They were a bit slow for solo play, and I never can line my schedule up with Blood Axe and Q. So I finally switched over to the Trickster to try to do better solo. But I did enjoy my Devastator. I actually saw on your Facebook where you had mentioned leveling up your Devastator, Matt, and yeah, I was like, man, I maybe I should stick with my Devastator. He seemed to be having so much fun.
Devastator was the first class because it's like the game came out and it's like, hey, do I want to play the game that I'm in? It's like, hell yeah, I want it. So I grabbed a Devastator, the first one. So I finished the game with so I have a level 30 tier 15 or world tier 15 Devastator. So that was my first one. He was a seismic shifter, so that was fun. I just throw earthquakes everywhere, super fun. And then I started playing with my two best friends co-op. So I made another Devastator for that. So we've just been going through like that. And then on my own, I went back and I finished the game with a Technomancer, who was all about turrets, just throwing them out like hay. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And now I'm working on a Pyro who is just a gross assault rifle build. Like it's my first female character in the game, and she is just melting people with her assault rifle. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think Pyro is the one I haven't really played much. Like I played the Trickster, I played the Technomancer. I think Q is the only one out of our bunch that actually played the Pyro.
Yeah.
But he seems to be enjoying it. I think last time I checked in on him, he was doing Expedition 13 or something with his Pyro. So
I think we got him to 14, but yeah, he was playing the Pyro, and our tactics were he was basically mobbing, and my Trickster was bossing. So Alpha's captains, I was responsible for them. He was keeping everything off of me, and that was kind of what we were doing. But we need to get.
This Pyro build seems to be like just excellent at smoking bosses. Like, I think. Oh yeah, well I'm still playing through the campaign, but I don't know, somewhere around level 20, I fought like 2 ironclads popped up, and I smoked both of them inside one magazine. I was like,
Oh, wow.
What is happening?
So before this, were you a big gamer? Did you play a lot of games prior?
I'm not a huge gamer anymore. I mean, like when I was a kid, games were, I don't want to date myself, but when I was a kid, Super Mario came out. So,
Me too.
yeah, so I used to play tons when I was a kid, and there's only a couple games that I sort of kept up playing through the years, but as soon as this came out, I was all over it.
Oh yeah, we when the demo came out, we all downloaded it and played it, and we talked about it for weeks. Actually, it's probably been an ongoing topic for about 2 months now. We usually have a little segment about Outriders because we just played so much of it lately.
You can't date yourself too bad, by the way. I think all of us here are in our 40s, so
some further along in the 40s than others.
Yeah.
But I am kind of curious now, and this is a common question I like to ask because I always find the answers interesting. So when it comes to Zahedi, his personality, how much of it is scripted versus how much did you have a creative license to do your own thing with?
Well, Josh Rubin, who's the head writer, and Felix Rock, who is the director, were both really great guys to work with. They're both open to a lot of things, and Josh wrote an amazing script. I mean, the story is like super fun. And so they presented me with this character, and we just all sat down. We workshop things before we got into shooting the game. Just talked about all the characters and how they function, how they relate with each other, and what they're all about, and that kind of thing. So I got to work with the both of them before we started shooting on who Zahedi would be. And they let me put in my input. Like there's one thing in particular that was in the original script, and we got there, I was like, no, this can't happen like this is not at all Zahedi. And they were like, you are absolutely right. And so we changed it. And so
nice.
It's something that happens at the end of the game. So I don't want to spoil what it is. I mean, it's not a giant thing. It's not like, I think Zahedi should save the world. It wasn't like giant like that, but it was just a little personality thing that they let me put in. That was super fun.
Yeah, it's interesting when I hear stories like that because we'll have an actor or actress on and they'll say, "Well, no, the character that I've actually taken a lot of invested interest in wouldn't do this," or "I've done this in the past with this character. Wouldn't it be cool if we kind of adjust it to that?" And sometimes studios agree, sometimes they don't. I know when it came to Gears, there was a lot of no, you have to follow the script. Versus when we spoke to Mr. Linty in Borderlands, they go, "Oh yeah, what's your idea?" And they were a lot more acceptable with it. So I think it also depends on the franchise because this is the first Outriders game, so we don't really have a lot of canon or a lot of established mythology regarding the game. So you have probably some more flexibility. But if you get to Outriders 3, 4, or 5, no, this is how the story goes, and so you do have
Outriders, right? Because is just like go to the alien planet and you got magical powers too. Like, yes, please.
Yeah.
So yeah, actually, your game does kind of fit into the whole franchise of aliens, which is the anomaly is still, I love the fact that I hope I don't get in trouble for this, but I love the fact that your game doesn't over explain everything. There's a lot of interpretation. And that's one of the things that I, as a fan, appreciate is don't explain to me everything. Give us a chance, an opportunity to discuss, hypothesize, theorize, and be able to form our own things.
Well, I
So,
think it's the mark of great sci-fi, right? Because like if you like when George Lucas made the original Star Wars movies, that they made a deliberate choice to say we're not going to explain how everything works. Like
mhm,
it will just be there are Jawas. That's all you need to know, right?
mhm,
And it totally created this whole this scape in this story where it's just like, yeah, I'm here. That's it. And it drives me nuts when I watch sci-fi and they're like, they have to name everything, give it a super cool name, like, and they just spend 9 hours explaining to you how the trigger on a gun works. And it's like, I don't need to know any of this. Like, let me decide what's cool.
right.
I will tell you what's cool. Just show me what's going on. So, and there's a lot that I find cool in Outriders, so that works out pretty well.
Yeah, I think it helps a lot with immersion too. Like as you're playing the game, you can sort of immerse yourself more when you can sort of fill in the blanks with your own personality and your own
Mm.
ideas. But
Yeah, you get to make it yours.
mhm.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I've often had many discussion, not really argument, but just more of a debate that Star Wars is not sci-fi. It's actually sci-fantasy. You're
Yeah,
right. Sci-fi, you must explain, physically how all this works, biomechanics, all that kind of thing. But sci-fantasy, it's fantastical. You don't have to
yeah,
have an explanation for it. And I think Q said it best. It's basically wizards with in space. It's
yeah,
what
yeah,
Star Wars
All
is.
right, I just think you're
yeah.
making
And
up words now. I'm not.
well, Outriders falls into that category, right? Because
Mhm.
I mean, there's a very, very strict sci-fi element to it of like, okay, well, there's this ship and we're going to go to this planet and there's cryo sleep. It's going to take this amount of time because of the speed of light and that. And oh, now I can lift the truck. You know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah. I
got that
really
great.
like the story of and especially the mystery as you progress through the campaign. And not going to spoil it for anyone that hasn't played the game yet, but I like how as you go along you find these artifacts and like these aren't supposed to be here. What are these doing here? And then you find out later on what's going on. But Yeah, it's the story was original, I thought, which
Mhm.
is refreshing and rare nowadays. A lot of times we see, things getting rebooted or they're taking or they're adding on to the existing franchise. But this is fresh and new. I think that's one of the things that has captivated us as gamers is that the story is not just a rehash of something
Yeah,
that we played 20 years ago.
Well, and I know.
yeah. Well,
Oh,
the
go
guys
ahead.
from People Can Fly are a really great gang of people. Like they a lot of not they but a lot of them used to work for Epic Games, and um,
Yes,
a lot of them had a hand in some of the Gears of War franchise. So
yes.
they all came from a place of understanding how to create like really interesting big games like this, and then got their own sandbox to do it in. So I think they really took care. They knew where the pitfalls were to begin with, on top of being really creative, amazing guys. So I really think they managed to put something together, which is great because they are a young company. I mean, Square Enix is involved, so
Right.
that's why everybody knows what's going on with Outriders. But the core production comes from People Can Fly, and it's a real, it's like a real boutique of passionate people. And I'm glad that they're experiencing some success with this because I want to see more from them for sure.
Yeah, is going back to the Gears of War. They did the Judgment game, which was kind of a prequel to the first Gears of War, and it focused on my favorite character in the Gears franchise, Baird. I play Baird as his skin for everything when it comes to being a tech. And the one thing that People Can Fly did that I thought was the most innovative in progressing the game forward was assigning classes in Horde. Because before then, you didn't
Mhm.
have a class. You just played Horde with guns and whatever you can find and set up shop, whatever. but now you can actually build a base. You can build defenses, and that was new. We had never done that before.
I
Now
played a lot
in
of
Gears 5.
Horde. I played a lot of Horde on Gears 4,
Mhm.
and yeah, the class system was huge. You know,
Well, yeah, the coalition advanced the abilities of the classes in 4 and then in 5. But before then, in Gears 2, there were no classes. And Gears 3 is, again, you're just running around trying to, survive. But when Judgment came out, we can actually build defenses now. We can use other special abilities. And you just grew upon that. But it was very innovative, very creative at the time. And it's just expanded since then.
it's so much fun, right? Like for me, one of the hallmarks of a really great game is replayability. Like
Mhm.
when I mentioned before, there's only a couple games that I've sort of kept up with over the years. One of them is Civilization, and that's a game where it's just you can just play it over and over and over and over and over,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's a different game every time. And one of the things that's great about Outriders is so far I haven't finished with my second Devastator, but the first time I played through solo as a seismic shifter. The second time I'm playing through co-op as a warden, and the way to play the game is completely different. Same level, same this, but how you think about playing is completely different. And then you play a Technomancer and it's totally different. And then you play a Trickster and a Pyro and it's totally different. And are you
Yeah.
doing it solo? Are you doing a co-op with friends? Are you doing a co-op with random strangers? Like it's a really it gives you a lot of chance to experience the same game in very different ways, and it's just super fun.
Yeah, you sound like my buddy Zen, who we played Gears together a lot. And when I started playing Outriders, he was asking me about it, and he didn't have Game Pass. He actually paid to purchase the game,
Mhm.
and he's trying different builds. And I keep trying to explain to him that when you're playing solo, it's a completely different build than you play co-op. And there's different class trees to kind of further explain to the audience what Matt's talking about. Is each class has 3 trees, and so for example, you may have a firepower build on one tree and an anomaly build on the other, which focuses more on skills as opposed to just raw gun damage. But yeah, your loadout for co-op, especially in expedition difficulties, will probably change compared to campaign solo play or even co-op
Absolutely.
campaign play. Um,
Like when I finished it with my first Devastator was a seismic shifter. There was so much Leroy Jenkinsing. It's just run screaming in, throw some earthquakes, and hope for the best kind of thing. And then when I played with my Technomancer, I was a lot of like, okay, stop. Where is everybody? Where can I throw a turret so I can screw up their day? Like it totally made me think completely differently, and it's a really palpably different quality to the game, you know?
Oh
So,
yeah, yeah, because Q will wait until like a broodmother comes out, and then he goes, "All right, tell me when you teleport," and I teleport, and he drops his blight turret, which gives me 30% damage for 10 seconds. So yeah, you have to coordinate, your abilities that kind of give bonuses or debuffs to your team across the board, as
mhm,
opposed to solo play. You can do whatever you want to with your character because you know how it's going to behave.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's refreshing to hear someone else have a similar mindset when it comes to co-op gameplay
Yeah, see, I'd
because
started my Devastator as a warden build because I thought my friends would play with me. Um,
we will.
but well, a lot of scheduling issues. But I ended up switching over my Devastator to a uh, melee punching build, and that was just amazing. I will say, just going and punching bosses in the face, and
Yeah.
of course throwing in your seismic abilities in there with it. But I will say the combinations could. I'm waiting to see what all combinations people come up with because I know it's going to constantly change at least for the first few months of the game as people find different combinations that work. But
Yeah.
the punching Devastator has definitely been one of my favorite combinations to do, and it was just fun to go and punch people in the face.
Well, I think one of the things that really works is like if you go online, you'll see like best Devastator build, best
Mhm.
this build, best that build, and each one is saying you absolutely have to have these 3 skills, and all of them are saying completely different skills.
Yeah,
Because I
yeah.
think the way that they set the game up is you never quite get everything you want. Like, it's impossible to have all the mods that you want, and to have all the skills that you want, and to have all of the, you're like, there's always something where you really have to be really picky and choosy when you're building your character. And so it just means there's, countless different kinds of characters, which means there's countless different kinds of gameplay, and it's super cool.
Yeah, I always tell people never listen to the best build. I was like, you can use it as a template, as an idea, but then go and add your own twist to it. Add what works for you, because I mean, your play style may not work with the best build because everybody plays different too. So
Yeah.
And that's sort of the fun of having those options out there. Is you got to tweak it to how you play. But
yeah, it's good to get ideas from other people's. Like, okay, how does this work synergistically with your other skills? Okay, well, this works better for me, but like, for example, Fortress, it's a tier 3 ability on the one of the shotguns. And I was talking to Q about it, and it's like, well, it adds, 40 up to 43% of armor to your damage, plus it gives me an extra tier of armor along with shields and health, so it gives me some more survivability. And I was able to stay up longer using that ability. And then he goes, well, I'm gonna try that too for my not Devastator. He was playing the Technomancer. And so he started adopting it. So yeah, you're right. Just talking to others or looking at videos online, you may get some ideas for different builds, and that may help you with your gameplay. Well, I do want to thank Matt very much for your time. You've been overly gracious with your time today. We definitely thank you very much for Abraham Zahedi, and the Star Wars talk was is hit me right here in the feelers, man. I appreciate
hey,
you
Red
very
Dwarf
much.
talk hurt me, man.
And
I'm like, oh.
we hope to be able to get you back on the show once we find out about your new voice projects for your next game coming up. We look forward to seeing that as well.
Thanks. I mean, I appreciate the invitation, and being on the show is great. You guys were great. It's a great conversation, and it's so wonderful to be able to work on a project like this, and then have it get released, and have such an amazing reception, and then be able to talk about it. I mean, it's all just so wondrous for me personally. So thanks for being a part of it, and I'll talk to you next time, man.